Ugh, it's time for your wake-up call. Hola, welcome back to what promises to be another juicy episode of Wake Up Call TV. I'm your host, Jody England, and our topic for today is one that we can really sink our teeth into, and that is the topic of Rush Limbaugh being a big fat asshole. Actually, the true topic is the topic of anger and trigger, and what happens when we get triggered, and is there a place for anger in an enlightened girl's life? And the answer to those questions is a resounding yes, yes, yes. So here's what happened. Normally I'm not a huge news watcher, but this week I happened to have the TV on in the morning when I was checking the weather to see what my kids should wear for school. And as I'm passing by, I hear out of the corner of my ear a story about Rush Limbaugh and some comments that he made about a young woman who was testifying, or was trying to testify actually, before Congress regarding women's ability to receive contraceptives as part of the current healthcare plan. And when he started to make the comments, it was like the record just scratched, and I turned and I could not look away from the TV. I want to share those comments with you in order to get you up to speed in case you haven't been following the story or you're not really aware of the egregiousness of the nature of the comments. And then from there we'll talk about what to do with any feelings we may have about these comments, okay? So let me get you up to speed. What happened is there was a woman named Sandra Fluke. She's a law student, and she was supposed to testify before Congress regarding this issue of whether contraception should be paid for in the healthcare system we currently have. She was denied the right to testify, and instead they listened to an all-male panel talk about what they thought about female contraception. She later was allowed to testify just before a Democratic panel, and in her testimony she gave some important evidence regarding why she believes that contraception should be provided for women in these plans. Rush Limbaugh was commenting on the testimony she gave. So here's what Rush Limbaugh said that I heard out of the corner of my ear that caused me to do a screeching halt and turn my full attention to what I couldn't believe was coming out of my TV. All right, here's what he said. Can you imagine if you were her parents how proud you would be, he said. Your daughter testifies she's having so much sex she can't afford her own birth control pills, and she wants President Obama to provide them, or the Pope. What does it say about the college co-ed Susan Fluke, who goes before a congressional committee and essentially says that she must be paid to have sex? What does that make her? It makes her a slut, right? It makes her a prostitute. She wants to be paid to have sex. She's having so much sex she can't afford the contraception. She wants you and me and the taxpayers to pay her to have sex. Oh no, he didn't. What do we do with all this anger? You know, what I notice is, for me, anger has always been a pretty easy emotion. It's been around a lot in my life, but the more evolved I get, or the more enlightened I am, I notice how there's sort of a stigma attached to it in the people who are on that path, you know, where they like to pretend like they don't get angry, and they don't like to talk about being angry. And to me that feels like an injustice, because anger can actually be a very powerful emotion, especially when we face up to it. The worst thing you can do with anger is pretend like you don't have it, because what happens then is it goes underground. And then have you ever noticed how you may feel like you're good and you're not angry at all, and then your child does something minor and all of a sudden you're like, rah! Well, that's because you have some unexpressed anger that's living in you, and it's looking for a place to sneak out. And so it just sort of bubbles under the surface, and then something happens and it busts out. So instead of setting yourself up in a situation like that by denying your anger, the best thing to do is to actually feel the anger. The other thing we tend to do with anger is if we allow ourselves to feel it, we only feel it a little bit. So we'll notice and we'll get a little riled up, and then we'll be like, oh, okay, that's not very enlightened, and we try to squash it down or ignore it and move on to something else, like going unconscious to it. And I noticed a lot of women in my circle having that experience. So they also were initially triggered by the Rush Limbaugh incident, and then they decided to go unconscious and allow their lives to move forward without focusing on it. But they didn't really ever look at it and allow themselves to go all the way in. This serves the same purpose as actually not feeling it in the first place. It's like stuffing it. So it doesn't really serve you to go unconscious to it or to turn your attention away. If the trigger's there, you got a deal. One other thing that's great about anger is often it can ignite us to take action on something we otherwise wouldn't. So there is a useful purpose for anger. It can move us forward. And I feel like as women, this is where we are with this current situation. There have actually been a number of situations over the last few weeks where women's space and women's rights are really being stepped on by masculine energy. And this anger that's rising is really an opportunity for us to wake up as women to something that's happening on the planet. As the planet evolves and enlightens, women are meant to be at the forefront of this new age of humanity. However, one of the things that's in our way is these centuries of anger and abuse and frustration and repression that we have experienced. And so the only way we can move to the other side of that is to actually acknowledge it and feel it in order to heal it. And so I'm inviting everybody who's watching this to join with me in taking a minute to feel our feelings about this particular situation as a doorway to healing all of the stuff that is haunting us from our past. So that's what we're going to do together now. In a second, I'm going to ask you to stop the video. And what you're going to do is you're going to close your eyes and allow yourself to really settle into this feeling of anger. And for me, it's easiest to do it if I start to think specific. So I might imagine playing a movie. So I would probably play the movie of what I saw on TV that day. Or you can imagine playing a movie of a time when you felt like you were repressed or abused by masculine energy in your life. Whatever it takes to allow you to tap into that really deep feeling of anger that's wanting to surface in you, that's what I want you to do. And then in the energy space, you're going to imagine yourself expressing that anger. So maybe that looks like you jumping up and down, or yelling and screaming, or cussing, or throwing things, or having a full-out temper tantrum. Whatever that looks like for you in order to actually let that energy move through, that's what you're going to do. Now, here's another thing to realize is a lot of people are scared to do this because it feels like, wow, if I tap into that, is it ever going to move through, or then I'm going to spend the rest of my day angry. But actually what you'll find is when you go all the way with the emotion, it will pass so quickly. Literally, like in a few seconds, maybe a minute is all you're really going to have to feel it. And then you'll notice that's almost like a balloon deflating. It'll suddenly just be gone. All right? So a little bit of big girl courage is going to get you through to the other side. So pause the video now, feel those feelings, and come back when you're ready. Doesn't that feel so much better? I hope you got a really good release out of that and created some space inside yourself for something beyond the anger. If, on the other hand, it was challenging for you and you had a hard time tapping into actually feeling angry, don't worry, that's not uncommon. For a lot of women, it's really scary to think about feeling those feelings of anger because we've been taught to be nice. We've been indoctrinated to keep a stiff upper lip and to not really express ourselves in these kinds of ways. So don't worry if that's the case for you, but do continue to explore it, because if you have a hard time feeling anger, that doesn't mean it's not in there. On the contrary, that means it's a place for you to really go looking, because you do have the triggers and you do experience the emotions. They're just festering away deep inside you, and they'll come out in resentment and disease and all kinds of things that don't serve you. So it will always be better if you can face it and feel it. One last thing. While anger can be a really useful tool for moving us forward into action, it's always better to take action when you are not triggered. All right? So what that looks like is you want to feel the feelings first, and then when you're clean and clear, look for what action to take. There still may be an action. Like, for example, you may want to go sign one of the petitions to ask the sponsors to boycott Rush's show. but it'll be a lot better and a more productive activity if you do it when you're not triggered. So get clear, then take action. Bonus round. If you want to continue exploring this energy on your own, I would encourage you to look around your life for where else do you need to get a little angry. Maybe it's in a relationship where you feel like you haven't been able to speak your voice. Or maybe it's in your parenting with one of your children. Or maybe it's something at work. But where have you been swallowing anger or going unconscious to it that you could now dive in and take a look? Allow yourself to do the same exercise. Dive in, feel the feelings, move it out so that you can move past the feeling and into your power. In the meantime, post below what things have you pissed off right now. Let's start this discussion. Let's empower ourselves to be angry, to move that energy, and to not be embarrassed to look at any energy. They're all just emotions, and they can't hurt us. So post below so we can all learn and grow together. Also, if you like this video, make sure to share it with your friends, or if you're not already on the list, put your name and email address in so we can send you the episode next week and each and every week thereafter. Finally, if you have a question or a topic that you would like to see me cover on Wake Up Call TV, just press the Ask Jody button below, shoot me a quick email with your question, and I'll do my best to work it into an upcoming episode. So in summary, anger is good, Rush Limbaugh is bad. Move the energy and find your freedom. Consider this your wake-up call.